The mirror society doesn't want to look into. Here's the brutal truth that'll make you uncomfortable. Intelligent people don't scare society because they're smarter. They scare society because they hold up a mirror that reflects back everything we'd rather not see about ourselves. Think about it. When was the last time you heard someone say, "I love hanging out with Sarah because she always points out when I'm being fake"? Never, right? Because we don't want our comfortable lies disturbed. Schopenhauer understood this perfectly. He wrote about how most people live their entire lives in what he called the world of appearances, a carefully constructed reality where we avoid anything that might make us question our beliefs, our choices, or our comfortable little bubbles. But intelligent people? They're bubble poppers by nature. They can't help but see through the facades. They notice when the emperor has no clothes. They ask the questions everyone else is afraid to ask. And society? Society wants to keep its clothes on, thank you very much. Now, let me paint you another picture. Imagine you're watching a movie with a group of friends. Everyone's enjoying this feel-good story about following your dreams and everything working out perfectly. But you can see all the plot holes. You notice how unrealistic it is. You see the lazy writing, the forced happy ending that ignores all the complex realities of life. Do you speak up? Do you ruin everyone else's good time by pointing out what you see? This is the daily reality for intelligent people. Not because they want to be party poopers, but because their minds simply work differently. They can't unsee what they see. They can't unfeel what they feel about the disconnect between reality and the stories we tell ourselves. Schopenhauer called this the burden of consciousness. The more aware you become, the more isolated you feel from those who choose to remain unaware. It's like being the only sober person at a party full of drunk people. Everything seems absurd. Nothing makes sense the way it used to, and you feel like you're speaking a different language. And here's where society gets scared. Because if intelligent people are right, if there really are these uncomfortable truths hiding beneath our collective delusions, then what does that say about the rest of us? What does that say about the lives we've built on those delusions? The threat of independent thinking. Let's get real for a moment about why this scares people so much. Society functions on agreements. We agree that this piece of paper has value, so we call it money. We agree that these arbitrary lines on a map matter, so we call them borders. We agree that these social rules make sense, so we call them normal. But what happens when someone doesn't agree? What happens when someone looks at these agreements and says, "Wait a minute, this doesn't actually make sense"? What happens when they start asking questions like, why do we spend 40 years working jobs we hate to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't like? Why do we accept that some people have billions while others can't afford basic health care? Why do we pretend that following the crowd is somehow more virtuous than thinking for yourself? Suddenly those comfortable agreements start looking shaky, and people who've built their entire identities around those agreements want growth. They want validation. They don't want to be challenged. They want to be agreed with. Intelligent people threaten all of that simply by existing. The psychology of intellectual intimidation. Here's something fascinating that Schopenhauer observed. People often react to intelligence the same way they react to physical threats. Their fight or flight response kicks in. They either attack the intelligent person directly, or they flee, avoiding them, excluding them, dismissing them. But why? Why do ideas trigger the same response as physical danger? Because challenging someone's worldview feels like attacking their identity. When you question their beliefs, you're not just questioning abstract concepts, you're questioning their choices, their values, their entire sense of self. Think about the last time someone challenged something you really believed in. How did it feel? Probably not great, right? Your heart rate probably increased. You might have felt defensive, angry, even personally attacked. Now imagine feeling like that every time you talk to certain people. That's what many people experience around those who think deeply and question openly. It's exhausting. It's uncomfortable. It's easier to just avoid them. And this is where society's cruelty really shows. Instead of admitting that intelligence makes them uncomfortable, people create narratives to justify their avoidance. They think they're better than everyone else. They're just showing off. They're too negative. They overthink everything. Sound familiar? These aren't criticisms of intelligence. They're defense mechanisms against feeling intellectually insecure. Schopenhauer didn't just observe this pattern, he lived it. He spent most of his life watching his profound insights get ignored or attacked. His masterwork, The World as Will and Representation, sold barely any copies during his lifetime. The academic world dismissed him. Society ignored him. Why? Because he told uncomfortable truths about human nature. He pointed out that most of our actions are driven by unconscious desires and fears, not rational choices. He showed how much of what we call love is really just biological programming. He revealed how our supposed free will is largely an illusion. People didn't want to hear any of that. They wanted to believe in the noble stories about human nature, about love conquering all, about individual agency and moral progress. Schopenhauer's insights threatened those comfortable myths. But here's the thing, and this is crucial. Schopenhauer wasn't sharing these insights to be cruel or superior. He was sharing them because he believed truth, even painful truth, was better than beautiful lies. And that terrifies a society built on beautiful lies. Now let's talk about today. Social media has amplified everything Schopenhauer observed about society's relationship with intelligence. Intelligent voices get pushed to the margins while the loudest, most simplistic voices dominate the conversation. Society gets the intellectual equivalent of junk food, lots of empty calories that taste good in the moment but leave you malnourished in the long run. And when intelligent people point this out, when they try to inject some nuance into these black and white debates, they get labeled as elitist, pretentious, or out of touch. Here's something Schopenhauer understood that we're just starting to acknowledge. Intelligence can be profoundly isolating. Not because intelligent people choose isolation, but because meaningful connection requires some level of mutual understanding. When you see the world differently than most people, when you think about things they never consider, when you're troubled by things that don't bother them, finding real connection becomes incredibly difficult. It's like being fluent in a language that few people speak. You can communicate basic needs and pleasantries, but the deeper conversations, the ones that really matter, remain out of reach. You end up feeling like you're performing a version of yourself that others can accept, while your authentic self remains hidden. This isn't arrogance or superiority. It's the ache of wanting to be understood, but consistently feeling misunderstood. It's the exhaustion of always having to translate your thoughts into more palatable versions. And society sees this withdrawal and interprets it as snobbery. It sees the careful self-editing and calls it pretension. It sees the solitude and labels it antisocial behavior. The fear of being exposed. Let's dig deeper into why intelligent people trigger such strong reactions. I think it comes down to exposure. The fear that someone will see through our carefully constructed personas to the messy, uncertain reality underneath. Most of us work hard to appear competent, confident, and in control. We curate our social media, we dress for the job we want, we learn the right things to say in social situations. We become masters of impression management. But intelligent people often see right through this performance, not because they're trying to, but because their minds naturally look for patterns, inconsistencies, and deeper meanings. They notice when someone's actions don't match their words. They pick up on subtle cues that reveal underlying motivations. This creates a profound vulnerability. Around intelligent people, we feel exposed, naked, seen in ways we'd rather not be seen. And that feeling? It's terrifying. So we protect ourselves by creating distance. We tell ourselves they're the problem. Too critical, too analytical, too intense. We make them the villain in our story, rather than acknowledging our own discomfort with being truly seen. The rebellion against mediocrity. Schopenhauer believed that most people live lives of what he called quiet desperation. going through the motions without really examining whether those motions make sense. They follow scripts written by others, pursue goals they never really chose, and call it a successful life. Intelligent people represent a rebellion against this mediocrity. Not an arrogant rebellion, but a necessary one. They ask questions like, what if there's more to life than this? What if we're all following the wrong script? What if happiness isn't about having more stuff or higher status? These questions are dangerous because they might lead to uncomfortable answers. They might reveal that many of us have been sleepwalking through our own lives, pursuing things that don't actually make us happy, following paths that lead nowhere meaningful. And if that's true, if intelligent people are right about the emptiness of conventional success, then what does that say about all the time and energy we've invested in pursuing it? The courage to stand alone. Here's what I admire most about truly intelligent people. They're willing to stand alone with their convictions. Even when it means being misunderstood, excluded, or attacked, they won't compromise their integrity for social acceptance. This isn't stubbornness or pride, it's moral courage. It's the recognition that some things matter more than being popular. Truth matters more than comfort. Authenticity matters more than approval. But society reads this courage as arrogance. We interpret their unwillingness to compromise as a judgment against those who do compromise. We see their independence as a rejection of community. We mistake their integrity for superiority. This misreading creates a tragic cycle. Intelligent people feel misunderstood, so they withdraw further. Society sees this withdrawal as confirmation of their antisocial nature. The gap widens, the misunderstanding deepens, and both sides become more entrenched in their positions. Despite all the fear and resistance they encounter, intelligent people offer society something invaluable. They serve as our conscience, our reminder that we can do better, be better, think more clearly about what really matters. They're the ones who point out that the emperor has no clothes, even when everyone else is too polite or too scared to notice. They're the ones who ask the hard questions, challenge the comfortable assumptions, and refuse to let us settle for less than we're capable of. This is a gift, not a curse. But like many gifts, it's often rejected by those who need it most. We'd rather stay comfortable in our illusions than deal with the discomfort of growth. Schopenhauer understood this. He knew that truth-tellers rarely get rewarded in their own time. He knew that society prefers pleasant lies to difficult truths. But he also knew that progress, real progress, only comes when someone is brave enough to see clearly and speak honestly about what they see. What this means for you. If you're someone who thinks deeply, questions boldly, and sees things others miss, this is for you. Your intelligence isn't a character flaw that needs fixing. Your questions aren't problems that need solving. Your different perspective isn't something to apologize for. Society's discomfort with intelligence says more about society than it does about you. But here's the thing, and this is important. You don't have to choose between intelligence and connection. You don't have to dumb yourself down to be loved. You don't have to hide your insights to be accepted. What you need to find are the people who appreciate depth, who value authenticity, who aren't threatened by someone who thinks differently. They exist. They're out there, probably feeling just as isolated as you do, wondering if anyone else sees the world the way they do. Schopenhauer believed that consciousness was both a burden and a gift. The burden is the loneliness, the isolation, the constant awareness of things others prefer to ignore. The gift is the richness of inner life, the depth of understanding, the ability to see beauty and meaning that others miss. The key is learning to carry both gracefully. This means accepting that you might never be understood by everyone, or even by most people. It means finding peace with being different, with seeing more, with caring about things that others dismiss as unimportant. But it also means using your intelligence wisely, not as a weapon to attack others' ignorance, but as a tool to build understanding. Not as a wall that separates you from humanity, but as a bridge that connects you to those ready for deeper connection. Let me be clear about something. We need questioners and thinkers, and people brave enough to challenge comfortable lies. We need individuals who won't settle shallow answers to deep questions. Society might fear intelligence, but society also depends on it. Every breakthrough, every innovation, every step forward in human civilization has come from someone who was willing to think differently, to see what others couldn't see, to ask questions others were afraid to ask. Your intelligence isn't just a personal trait, it's a responsibility. You have a duty to use it, to share it, to let it contribute to the world's understanding. Not with arrogance or condescension, but with compassion and patience for those who haven't yet developed the courage to see as clearly as you do. Arthur Schopenhauer spent his life being misunderstood, dismissed, and ignored. But time proved him right about human nature, about the unconscious forces that drive our behavior, about the illusions we create to make life bearable. Today, his insights form the foundation of modern psychology. His ideas about the unconscious mind influenced Freud and Jung. His thoughts on the nature of suffering shaped entire philosophical movements. The world eventually caught up to his intelligence. The same will happen for you, in your own way, in your own time. The intelligence that makes others uncomfortable today will be the insight that helps others tomorrow. The questions that make people squirm now will be the answers that set people free later. Society's fear of intelligence is really society's fear of growth, of change, of having to examine itself honestly. But growth is inevitable. Change is constant. And honest self-examination? That's the only path to genuine progress. Your intelligence is part of that path. Your questions are part of that journey. Your refusal to accept comfortable lies is part of humanity's slow, difficult, necessary evolution toward greater understanding. Don't let society's fear dim your light. If this resonated with you, if you felt seen and understood by these ideas, then you're exactly the kind of person who needs to hear this message. Don't let society's discomfort with depth make you shallow. Don't let their fear of questions make you stop asking. Hit that like button if you've ever felt misunderstood for thinking too deeply. And share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in seeing the world differently.